day. And Sunday rest helps humans to be watchful also about the danger to become slaves to work. It's a time of rest, it's a time of creativity, and it's a time also to dedicate for relationships. Humans are not machines, but they have their families, they have their dreams. And so the Jesuit European Social Center is committed in the Sunday Alliance because we firmly believe that this helps humans for fulfillment.
So let us, if hope that we'll continue to have this sense of the Sunday as a day of rest. Day of rest because we need rest. Day of rest for the family because the family needs to have a time together in the week from one week to another. And society itself, there's a need for the society to rest, to have a common day of rest. A common day of rest because a family alone cannot take a day of rest when people in the family are working somewhere else. So a common day of rest for the whole society, for the family, but also for the whole society, because the society needs to learn to breathe.
My name is Alix and I'm policy advisor at COMEC, which is the Commission of the Bishops' Conference of the European Union. Many people are suffering from poverty and loneliness. This is why we need fraternity more than ever. We need to care for each other, for we are all members of one human family. This is why at COMEC we are committed to promote Sunday as a common weekly day of rest in the European Union. A day that gives time for family and spiritual life. A day to experience social friendship and fraternity.
Welcome everybody to our webinar today on the right to disconnect and the need for a European weekly common day of rest. My name is Hendrik Merkamp. I'm Senior Policy Advisor at JESC, the European Confederation of Independent Trade Unions. As a European trade union umbrella organization representing more than 5 million workers in Europe, especially but not only in the public services. We have been a long-standing member in the European Sunday Alliance, and as such I am glad to be your moderator during the event today. I am glad to see you all so numerous today to our webinar, and I would like to welcome you on behalf of the entire steering group of the European Sunday Alliance, which also includes Uni Europa, the Commission of the Bishops' Conferences of the European Union, COMEC, the Protestant Church in Germany, EKD, the Jesuit European Social Center, JESC, the Federation of Catholic Family Associations in Europe, FAFCE, Don Bosco International, DBI, the International Young Christian Workers, YOKI, and also the Confederation of European Churches, CEC. As the European Sunday Alliance, overall, we are a broad network of more than 100 national Sunday alliances, trade unions, employers organizations, civil society organizations, churches, and religious communities. What unites us is that we are all committed to raise awareness of the unique value of synchronized free time for our European societies. In this context, this webinar aims to raise awareness on the need to establish a weekly common day of rest for all, which in our view is both necessary and desirable due to different social, faith-related, economic, and also environmental reasons. This webinar takes place in particular against the backdrop of the ongoing deliberations and discussions within and among the EU institutions on a possible EU directive on a right to disconnect, a matter which the European Parliament has in principle spoken up for in a recent legislative initiative report, and which is now on the table of the European Commission for a decision on whether it will table an EU directive on it or not, potentially also with a provision on a day of synchronized free time. Before delving deeper into the topic and the subject matter, I would, however, first like to give the floor for a welcome address to Dennis Radke, who needs to leave us straight afterwards. Dennis Radke is a German member of the European Parliament. Many of you will know him. He's coordinator of the group of the European People's Party in the Committee on Employment and Social Affairs. And very importantly, he's also a very dear sponsor of our European Sunday Alliance. Mr. Radke, I would give you the floor for the welcome address.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Meerkamp, dear colleagues and friends, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for the invitation. You are right. I'm actually in the middle of the meeting of the German delegation, but it was very important for me to give a short address here because I'm an active supporter of the Sunday Alliance in Germany, and the political debate on the right to disconnect, in my eyes, is very important. The change of the labor market and of the labor reality took place in the last years, and to be honest, the COVID pandemic, of course, was quite a boost in this situation. 37% of the employed people in the European Union started with mobile working, with working from home. Of course, this helped in saving jobs. That was very important. And in my eyes, to be honest, it is not up to politics to decide this change of work is good or not. This is not up to politics. This change has taken place and is taking place, but it is up to politics to make clear that there has to be clear rules, also in a changing working reality. And in my eyes, this problem starts with defining what is home office, real home office, and the difference to mobile working. And especially for mobile working, we have all over Europe not many very clear rules. So there is a lack of privacy, and that is one of the major points where I will say the work of the Sunday Alliance is very important, because work, growth of the economy, that are all important issues, but still we are talking about human beings. And for every human beings, for me, it is very clear there has to be privacy, there has to be the opportunity to have some recreation. And so it is very important that you are raising this issue over and over again. And for concluding, in my eyes, as a parliament, we came up with a good solution, because we had an intense debate in establishing a framework for a right to disconnect, and the solution we came up with was we went to the social partners and said, it's up to you now. We give you 3 years' time to come up with some concrete points, how to solve this problem, how to establish a framework, how to ensure that there will be privacy and a kind of right to disconnect for employees in all over Europe. And that is what we have done. And in 3 years, we will get the results. And it is up to us then to make this to transfer this into a concrete law. Because that is, as someone who has worked for a trade union in Germany for many, many years, that is one of my deepest beliefs. The social partners are much more closer to the reality in business, in the companies, than politics can ever be. So in my eyes, this is a very good achievement, a very good point we have made as a parliament. So thank you very much for the invitation. I wish you a fruitful discussion, and see you soon. And I'm looking forward to carry on with the debate with you. And so take care and see you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Mr. Radke. Thank you. Now, Mr. Radke mentioned it already. The context of this webinar is the ongoing discussions within and among the EU institutions on a possible new EU directive on a right to disconnect. In January, the European Parliament adopted a so-called legislative initiative report, which Mr. Radke just hinted at, which in principle calls on the European Commission to table a proposal for an EU directive on the matter. And importantly, the report also makes reference to the Council of Europe's European Social Charter, which all EU member states have also ratified, and which actually fixes in its Article 2.5, and I quote, a weekly rest period which shall, as far as possible, coincide with the day of recognized by tradition or custom in the country or region concerned. So not least, against the background of this reference, today's webinar aims to explore into the political and the legal issues circling around a possible EU directive on the matter with a clause on synchronized free time. And the webinar also seeks to consider some of the social, faith-related, economic and environmental benefits that a day of synchronized free time could very likely and plausibly bring. To this end, we are very glad to have with us today a very high-level panel to share their expertise and their opinions. First of all, we will hear on the value of synchronized free time from Patrizia Toia, an Italian MEP from the center-left S&D group, who's also chair of the European Parliament Intergroup on the Social Economy. We will also hear more about the European Parliament's recent report on the right to disconnect from Alix Saliba, who is the MEP in the European Parliament who steered the report through to adoption as main rapporteur. We will also hear about the value of synchronized free time from Miriam Lexman, a Slovakian MEP from the center-right EPP group, and also a member of the European Parliament Intergroup on demographic challenges and work-life balance and youth transition. Finally, we are very glad to have with us today Max Übe. Max Übe is head of unit in the B1 unit in the European Commission's Directorate General for Employment, Social Affairs and Inclusion. And in this capacity, he's overseeing the European Commission's technical work on everything related to the right to disconnect. Yes, we are looking very much forward to get an update from him about the state of play concerning the work of the European Commission on the right to disconnect following the adoption of the report by the European Parliament. I would kindly insist all speakers to be very, very brief so that we also have some time for a Q&A session after the interventions towards the end of the webinar. Due to the high number of registrations and the need to keep the Q&A also as focused as possible, we have opted for a mode which is as practical as possible and at the same time as interactive as possible. So what we did, we decided to filter some of the most pertinent questions that we received as part of the registration process from you. And in the course of the Q&A, we will seek to unmute you and give you the floor to place the questions that you submitted. I also would like to notify you that the meeting is being recorded. And so much for all the technical information. And without further ado, I would like to give the floor to Patrizia Toia for her address. Thank you very much.
Okay, can you hear me? Okay. Thank you so much for inviting me to this important webinar on the right to connect, to disconnect, and the need for European weekly common day of rest. Firstly, I want to thank very warmly the European Sunday Alliance for their effort to raise awareness of this fundamental topic and for their important initiative of this sense and for the other initiative in the past. We know that the COVID-19 crisis has changed the way we used to work. Even if working from home has been instrumental in helping safeguard employment and jobs during the crisis, the combination of long working hours and higher demands also leads to, as research shows, more cases of anxiety, depression, burnout, and other mental and physical health issues. Since the outbreak of the pandemic, working from home has increased by almost 30%. And the people who work regularly from home are more than twice as likely to surpass the maximum of 38 working hours per week compared to those working from the office. The increase in telework and in the use of digital devices has resulted in an always-on culture, which has a negative impact on the work-life balance of employees and in general for people. The European Parliament considers the right to disconnect a fundamental right that allows workers to refrain from engaging in work-related tasks, such as phone calls, emails, and other digital communication outside working hours without facing negative consequences. In January, in fact, we approved in the Parliament a legislative initiative with a big majority. This is a good sign. And here we have the rapporteur, my dear colleague Salima, of this report. I think it's important. We asked to call on the Commission to prepare a directive and with some minimum requirement and other conditions. In addition, we know that IPRS note on the future of work highlights that this hyperconnectivity due to teleworking can lead to a particular type of stress referred to a technostress. Anytime and anywhere connectivity can be intrusive, potentially softening the boundaries between work and personal and high-end family life, and can also raise privacy concerns and lead to work-life balance conflicts. Now that millions of Europeans are working from home, European legislation is more urgent than ever to establish the right to be disconnected. We need to be cautious that the telework doesn't not become a new form of slavery. The work of the European Sunday Alliance on the right to be connected is key. And the European Sunday Alliance has already engaged in different initiatives to support a work-free Sunday. And personally, I have supported in the past this initiative. And Alliance has worked to raise awareness of the unique value of synchronized free time for our European society. As you have said publicly, and I agree with you, that much time has been lost during which in the past citizens and families used to do volunteer work or civic engagement or joint social, sport and faith-related activities, domestic and care responsibilities, and more generally to spend time together. Synchronized free time is key for citizens and families to take part in activity and hobbies all together, and for workers to recover from work and alleviate stress through activities with friends, families, and communities, local communities and social communities. As European Parliament, we need to promote member state initiative in this sense, and I will promote something also in my country for the well-being and health of all. Now is the moment, I think is now the moment to stand by their side and give citizens what they deserve, the right to disconnect. It is time to update workers' rights so that they correspond to the new realities of digital age. As you know, we are engaged also for the digital right for digital workers and the other kind of rights. And I put this right for disconnected in the framework of the different rights. In conclusion, I would like to thank again the European Alliance, and I will assure of my full support. I am sure that today we'll attend a very interesting debate about this important question. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Stoja, about these very passionate words in favor of synchronized free time also and the proper right to disconnect for workers in Europe. I would like to give the floor to Mr. Alix Agius-Saliba now for, yes, also his view in relation now to the Parliament report which he was steering and his expectations of what should be coming out of it now. You have the floor, please.
First of all, thanks Hendrik and the Sunday Alliance. I would also like to say hi to my colleague Patrizia Toia, who basically also has already outlined the scope of the right to disconnect and the initiative that the European Parliament has undertook and is still undertaking with pushing forward politically the right to disconnect. So let us start, I think, from the most important question. Why do we need the right to disconnect? Because this was one of the biggest questions which was doing a lot of rounds from the main critics of this right, even during the negotiations and before the vote in the plenary on the right to disconnect. First of all, at European level, although we have the Working Time Directive and basic fundamental rights, which are giving weekly and daily fundamental rights of rest period to our workers, we still don't have the right to disconnect defined under EU legislation. We have the right to disconnect, which is, I would say, haphazardly applied and implemented by different legislations in different member states. France was a front runner when it comes to the right to disconnect. In Italy, we have a legislation catering for a small chunk of workers for smart workers, which was, again, a very important development for the right to disconnect. And then we have a very recent legislation in Ireland, which is very much in line with what the European Parliament is proposing. Because we are proposing as a European Parliament to have the right to disconnect as a fundamental right to be enjoyed by each and every worker throughout the Union, which has connection and which is using basically digital means. In France, this right is awarded only to those companies which employ more than 50 employees. And as I said, in Italy, only a small fraction of the workforce is defined as smart workers. So what we are proposing is a fundamental right to disconnect to each and every worker. Why are we proposing and why have we moved forward this recommendation coupled with an annex with a fully fledged piece of legislation, fully fledged directive? Because ultimately today we are living in a world where the boundaries between working time and rest time are being totally blurred. They are being blurred because our workforce and working time has been revolutionized by digital means which are so fundamentally important, especially they were fundamentally important during the pandemic to save countless number of jobs, to continue to communicate, to continue to live as normally as possible. These are all positive side effects of digitalization of our workforce. But at the same time, there are also negative repercussions. And if we speak about occupational health and safety, if we speak about the rising numbers of mental health issues, depression, technostress, muscular and eye illnesses, these were and are becoming more prominent for teleworkers, for smart workers, for workers which are more mobile and are not working directly from their offices. Therefore, this effect of always being connected, of this digital obesity is more pronounced today during the pandemic, although it has been there for a number of years. Therefore, also the European Parliament has been lobbying on the right to disconnect much before the start of the pandemic. But today, the political visibility of this digital obesity is more clear. And this was also clearly highlighted by a study undertaken by Eurofound. They made 2 surveys during the pandemic, and both of them are confirming. If you look at statistics, only 5% of office workers are complaining that they are working more than the allocated maximum working hours per week and daily working hours. On the other hand, it is around 40% of teleworkers, smart workers, flexi workers who are saying that they work more than 8 hours every day. They work more than the 48 maximum working hours every week. So the problem is more visible for workers which are more mobile. But the problem is there for each and every workers. And that's why we haven't restricted the right to disconnect as a European Parliament only to teleworkers. The right to disconnect can protect a number of fundamental rights for our workers, fundamental rights which our forefathers have so hardly fought during the past years to safeguard for our workers. Workers' fundamental rights, protection of fair working conditions, protection of fair remuneration, protection of working time and work-life balance. We cannot speak about work-life balance when our phones, mobile phones, smartphones are ringing on Sundays, on Saturdays, outside working time, when we go home to enjoy our family, to enjoy our loved ones. And we have to stay connected with our digital devices. This is not rest time. So it's really important also to protect this fundamental principle of rest time and protection also of work-life balance, because you cannot have the right balance when you are constantly connected. And also protection of health and safety of our workers, and also protection of equality between men and women. So these are the fundamental pillars of protection, the raison d'être why we need the right to disconnect. With regards to rest periods spent with family, these basically allows us to rest and recover from work better, helping us also to stay fit. And therefore, if we have a fitter a workforce which is healthier, both physically and also mentally, we will definitely have a workforce which is also more productive. And this is also an argumentation which I cannot understand by those who are criticizing the right to disconnect, because we had some quarters and some critics which were saying we cannot have the right to disconnect established at European level, because if we have the right to disconnect at European level, we will be basically hitting negatively the competitivity of our workforce. We cannot pretend that our workforce is productive outside their working time. So the argumentation of productivity outside working time does not make sense in the ambit and the discussion of the right to disconnect. In my opinion, and in the opinion of the majority, the big majority of the European Parliament, which voted in favor of the right to disconnect, we believe that productivity should be restricted to working time when workers are being remunerated for that, when workers are basically contractually working. Therefore, this is also an important part of our debate. When it comes to joint synchronized free time and also rest periods, for me, this is also of fundamental importance. It is fundamental importance for family values in the European Union. where workers can basically spend time with their families, with their loved ones. And this is also directly, I would say, correlated to the right to disconnect, because it will also help safeguard fundamental rest periods, weekly and daily rest periods, where workers can enjoy their life outside working time. When it comes to the technical aspects of what the European Parliament is proposing, in the fully fledged piece of legislation that we have approved by a big majority in the European Parliament, we have approved a possible scope for the right to disconnect content, for the future right to disconnect, minimum requirements that should be respected. When it comes also to the role of social partners, Dennis Radke has also mentioned the importance of fully involving our social partners, our trade unions, employer representatives. We are totally in line with that point, and this is basically also the strongest point of the right to disconnect, because when you're speaking about the right to disconnect, you cannot have an inflexible right to disconnect, a right to disconnect which does not cater for specific sectors, for specific workers' dialogue in each and every member state, which vary a lot. And therefore, yes, social partners should and must be fully involved to negotiate the right to disconnect at employer also undertaking. We are also giving protection for workers to be able to safeguard their right to disconnect, to be able to vouch for their right to disconnect without facing negative repercussions and discrimination. And that's why we are also introducing a number of mechanisms against discrimination, and also the important principle of the reversal of burden of proof when there is a claim for the right.
Could you come to a close eventually,
yes.
Alex?
Yes. So this is the raison d'etre behind the Parliament's report. From a technical point of view, now we have approved the right to disconnect. Now the ball is in the Commission's court. We don't want to wait for another 3 years, and this is not reflective of what we have agreed in the European Parliament. We have in the European Parliament agreed that social partners at EU level should be involved from the very start of the discussions, but we have never tied the Commission's hands to wait for 3 years before starting discussions with our social partners. And we are pushing forward Commissioner Schmidt and the European Commission to act as soon as possible so that the right to disconnect could be enjoyed by our workforce as soon as possible, especially during the time of the pandemic.
Thank you very much, Alex, for this passionate closing also, which we agree with, and for making also the productivity argument, which we are also stressing. We are, the Sunday Alliance, we are stressing the fact that spending resting time together is more productive than spending resting time alone. This is very important to us. So thank you very much. I would also, for time reasons, straight give the floor to Miriam Lexman, and also kindly ask her to stay within the 10 minutes or even make it shorter, so that we have some time for the questions and answers afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the floor, and thank you very much to all the organizers, because I think this is a very timely event and a very important event. I'm working with the European Sunday Alliance very closely since I started my mandate, and my mandate actually started with the Corona a year ago, because I arrived only after Brexit into the European Parliament. So practically my all engagement with the European Parliament and as a member of the Ample Committee was influenced by the Corona crisis, and that's why I will probably start to analyze the impact of the crisis. We are still unfortunately facing the hopefully the last phase of at the moment on the employees' rights, because we have seen two dimensions. On one hand, we have seen that many jobs can be done from home, and that has allowed workers and employees to better balance their life, spend more time with family because they did not need to travel, and have more value time together as a family. On the other hand, we have also observed the negative impact, which practically made many more people who were not so much working online before, because we know that this trend started especially in the tech companies or maybe the international organizations. This trend started much earlier, that people were working online. And the impact was that practically people started to work 24/7. Their phones were always ringing, their emails were always beeping, and in the middle of night they felt obliged to answer emails. So I think that this is a negative trend which we have to observe. Also, I mean, we have seen that work at home, especially for women, meant that they have to manage not only their job, but they also have to help children with schooling, and they also have to cook for their children because they didn't attend the schools, and the canteens were obviously not providing the food for at least the whole meal for lunch for their children. So, and on top of this, we know that many families are taking care of elderly. Many employers have the also extra duty, which is a moral duty, and it's a duty which belongs to the family, but we know that the care of elderly, the care of our grandparents, practically during the COVID crisis made the work-life balance even harder. And this blurred line between work and life practically, and family life practically has a very negative impact on our mental health. We know that depressions are growing. We know that many people suffer burnout, and we know that and there is not even enough of studies. And unfortunately, I think that after the COVID crisis, when the studies will be conducted, we will see a huge increase in mental health problems, and especially among parents who had to manage too many duties during the COVID crisis. And I already see it from the statistics of NGOs who are providing support to people who suffer from mental health, because they know that the clientele has grown during the pandemics. But of course, we don't have the correct numbers, because they will have to be looked into after the crisis is over. So what we know is that 30% of people who are working online are suffering from problems to balance their work and their family life. And only 5% of workers, I mean, these are the statistics done before the COVID crisis, only 5% of workers who are not only working in the office. And we know, and it was already mentioned by many previous speakers, that practically the quality life with family, relax and kind of recreation is helping us not only be more relaxed persons and combine and manage all these duties better, but also this has an impact on our workings conditions and the way how we can proceed and perform at work, because we know that relaxed persons are more efficient and more effective at work. I come from Slovakia, and there was a famous entrepreneur, Baťa, who produced shoes. He was kind of operating within that time Czechoslovakia, and one of his rules were that the workers had to have practically enough of space for their family life and enough of space for relaxation, because he knew that then their performance will be much higher. So I think that from all this context, we know that we need to have a new look at workers' rights because of this change of practically becoming online workers, which was a dramatic change, especially now during the pandemics. And I think for many jobs, it will continue. I very much support the right to disconnect, because I believe that this is the only way how we can reach that the work-life balance is properly observed, and we can practically guarantee that the workers are not exhausted and not suffering mental problems. What I believe that though we have to make sure that the way how this is going to be captured in a legislation needs to be primarily an agreement between the social partners, because I think, and Dennis Radke, my colleague, said it very, very clearly, that those who are practically in the situation, those whose lives will be influenced by this law, those are those who know best how to set this. So I would support this idea that this is mainly suggested by the social partners, and that's why I mean that was my kind of observation when the European Parliament's report on this was adopted, that I did not consider a right step that the report already consisted of a draft directive, because I believe that the way how this is going to be managed needs to be first discussed and properly suggested by the social partners based on their agreement. And coming from the right to disconnect, I will move on to the other topic, which is the right to disconnect, not on a daily basis, but the one day in a week. And I very much support the initiative that will come back to the idea that Sunday is a day of rest, Sunday is a family day, Sunday is a day which will all help us all to gain new strengths and powers to proceed with our daily jobs from Monday onwards. I think that obviously this is a national legislation. We know that some member states already have it in the legislation, and they have Sunday as a day of rest. And as I said, I'm coming from Slovakia, an ex-communist country. I would probably give you kind of historical arguments as well, that first of all, the Sunday as a day of rest we observe from the year 321, when the Emperor Constantine has by law set this day as a day of rest. Of course, this was based on the Old Testament, on the Jewish tradition that there is one day, the seventh day is a day of rest. During the French Revolution, though, because this revolution became very atheistic in a way, there was an attempt to change the week into the 10 days week, so there will be no this Judo-Christian tradition observed any longer in France. And we know that this has created lots of problems, and practically not only people but also animals were suffering to conduct their jobs. We have observed similar attempts during the Soviet Union and in the other communist countries to change the calendar, that there is no 7 days written. But we know, and the history has shown us, that practically somehow this 7 days written and the desire to have one day of rest out of the 7 is somehow in the people's genes. And I would maybe say here that, of course, the market can provide different workers different days for rest, but I would suggest that we still come back to the idea of a Sunday being a day of rest for most of the people, because we know that hospitals cannot be closed and some services cannot be closed, but at least that we will provide most of the people one day of rest, which families can observe together, because obviously if one parent has Tuesday free and one parent has Sunday free, the family cannot be together as a family. And I believe that this is also a very important element, that we will provide the families a day when they can spend time together. This is also provides a healthy development for the children, that they have time with both of the parents together, and we know that this can have impact on their future life. So I only support all the initiatives. The Bishops' Conference has come up with that we will come back to this idea of Sunday as a day of rest in the European Union. I know that during the COVID crisis, practically the shops were closed most of the time. Yes, I'm closing now. And I believe that we have realized as as customers that we don't need to go to the shop on a daily basis. I understand that this has a social impact on people.
I think we lost your connection. Is that possible? I cannot hear you. Can others hear Mrs. Lexman? Okay. I think for time reasons we need to move on, but I think she had finished in any case almost with her intervention. If she comes back, we will thank her again. And I would move forward to Max Übe now, just for a very quick state of play of what is going on within the European Commission at the moment with regards to a right to disconnect. Where are discussions and what is planned at the moment? Thank you, Max.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for the invite and an interesting discussion so far. There's a lot of learning as always, including about just now the role of Emperor Constantine. Indeed, I will not, after so many distinguished speakers, try to repeat what has been said, but rather give you an update from the Commission services point of view on a really important topic relevant for so many European citizens. Let me maybe first start to underline again that in the EU we luckily benefit from a strong labor acquis that sets rules already related to working and resting times, health and safety, sound working conditions, etc. Alix has referred to that. We have the JESC, the Working Time Directive, now the Transparent and Predictable Working Conditions Directive, the Work-Life Balance Directive of 2019. And only a few weeks ago now, the Porto Social Summit endorsed the European Pillar Action Plan. And in this action plan, we also touch upon the right to disconnect and the need to further analyze the challenges posed by the evolutions in the world of work that have been described by previous speakers. This reference in the action plan was, of course, prompted by the European Parliament's own initiative report on the right to disconnect that Alix presented here today. The Commission welcomed this resolution, which really raises a pertinent issue and, as I said, is of concern for many Europeans, in particular now in the times of the pandemic. Some of you might know that the Commission has, in the meantime, formally responded to this resolution in line with the established procedures. So that means that Commission Vice President Šefčovič has sent a letter end of March, I think on the 25th of March it was, to President Sassoli, to the European Parliament, and outlined the response. And this letter, first of all, recalls the important political commitment that our president, so President von der Leyen, made in her political guidelines as regards resolutions adopted by the European Parliament under Article 225. So the Commission is committed to follow up with a legislative act in full respect of proportionality, subsidiarity, and better law-making principles. And as a first step, and also in line with the Parliament's resolution, the Commission invites social partners to find commonly agreed solutions to address the challenges raised by telework, by digitalization, and the right to disconnect. And the Commission will proactively support social partners in their endeavor. In parallel, the Commission will continue to explore the context and the implications of the right to disconnect and remote work to inform its reflection on a potential EU legislative initiative on the right to disconnect within the broader context of remote work. To the best of our knowledge, the need for a European synchronized free time has not been considered by many studies and analysis so far. However, as a follow-up to the European Parliament resolution on the right to disconnect, we plan on looking in depth into the challenges and opportunities related to the impact of the new technologies that they have on workers' health and safety and the work-life balance, including the need for quality free time. And this will entail fostering discussions and the identification of best practices in various fora, of course, with the involvement of social partners, but also member states, the EU institutions, of course, and other stakeholders. We will also conduct research to explore the context, evolution, and implications of telework and the right to disconnect beyond the pandemic that hopefully will come to an end soon. And then, based on the social partners' discussions and the evidence we have collected, the Commission may proceed with a so-called first stage social partner consultation under Article 153 of the treaty in view of a possible Commission proposal addressing the issues requested in the resolution. That's where we stand at the moment. Let me maybe, as a last point, add that not only the European Parliament and the Commission are active on this topic, but also the Council. The Portuguese presidency has proposed and negotiated Council conclusions with the member states on telework and the broader context, and they should be adopted, I think, on the 14th of June, so in about 2 weeks' time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Max, for this short summary and the update. And it's good to hear that you are going in both ways. You are encouraging the social dialogue, and also you are preparing analysis within the European Commission services. That's very encouraging to hear also. Yes, this concludes our panel, and we have some minutes left for a question and answer session. And without much further ado, I would like to give first the floor to Bénédicte Collin, who has a question on the social desirability of synchronized free time. Bénédicte, if we could have your question, please.
Thank you very much, Hendrik. Thank you to all the speakers and all very interesting points that have been raised. So it will be a question from the FAFSE, the Federation of Catholic Family Associations in Europe. And we are very much invested on the questions of weekly resting days for families to allow families to spend time together. I will be very quick, as most points were raised on the question of the increase of working times with the current organization of the labor markets. And as Mrs. Toya and Lépine raised, the question of the constant availability of workers through digitalization, and especially in the COVID-19 context. And as it has been told, it results in the loss of free time and in the loss of time for families to spend time together. So my question, I guess, to all the speakers would be, would an EU directive on the right to disconnect include a weekly work-free day? And especially I would like to stress the idea of a synchronized day in order to allow families and people not only to have free time alone, but as well to spend time together, to engage in social faith-related activities, sport, volunteer work, and to invest in social solidarity. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Bénédicte. I think we don't have time to give everybody the floor, but is there one speaker who would like to answer to this? Maybe Mrs. Toya, do you have an answer to this question? We don't hear you. Okay. Perhaps Mr. Agio Saliba, would you like to respond to this question? You need to unmute yourself. Okay.
Okay, you can hear me now?
A very brief answer.
Yes, I think that we have to keep these two discussions which are distinct. They are basically dealing with the same issue, and we're dealing with rest time, and basically the right to disconnect, and the initiative of the European Parliament goes in that direction to establish rest periods and respect, not just established, because the rest periods are established by the Working Time Directive, but the right to disconnect is enforcing the Working Time Directive in the new digital realities that we are living, therefore safeguarding rest periods. On the other hand, synchronized free time did not feature in the right to disconnect, not because we don't agree with synchronized free time and with particular days whereby families, workers can spend their time with their loved ones. I think this is really an important point, but I don't think that a legal instrument can enshrine both principles under the same head. They are relevant to each other. One topic cannot be discussed also without discussing the other, but at the same time, I think these are two separate discussions, which again are all fighting for the same thing, to safeguard quality rest time, and yes, safeguard free time for our families, for our workers.
Thank you very much, Alix. We have one other question from Alix from Comisse on some of the economic and productivity related aspects of synchronized free time. Alix, if we could have your question.
Thank you very much, Hendrik, and thanks again to all the speakers. Yes, I'm Alix de Wasseige. I'm policy advisor at Comisse, the Commission of the Bishops' Conferences of the EU, and we are also an active member of the European Sunday Alliance. Now, today, many of the speakers have mentioned that time for family, friends, and community is important. As part of the Alliance, we observe that many workers have lower stress levels, are generally happier, and are able to recover better during common free time shared with their family, friends, and communities. And this has also implications for their performance at work. Therefore, my question is, would it not be time that EU agencies such as the European Agency for Safety and Health at Work and Eurofound start to research and gather sound scientific data on the links between loneliness versus the common free time off, and the implications for the health and safety of workers and their performance? And this could serve as a reference to the policymakers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alix, for this question. Is there one of the MEPs who would like to answer? Do we still have, I don't see everybody on my screen. Do we have Miriam Lexman still with us or not? If so, would she maybe like to answer this question? Okay. I believe we don't have, maybe we lost her on the way. Max Übe, maybe you would like to answer to this, because you already hinted a bit at the scope of analysis that you are also envisaging at the moment in order to underpin your work on the right to disconnect. Do you have any take from the European Commission on this, on the role of EU OSHA and Eurofound to compile data on this?
I'm unmuted, yeah. Yes, indeed. I mean, as I mentioned earlier already, we are now looking into the launch of a bigger study that would support then further work on this topic. And indeed, the issue of synchronized time would probably feature in there. But you have said rightly that the agencies under DG Employment's remit, like EUOSHA in Bilbao and Eurofound in Dublin, in particular Eurofound, has done and will do and is about to do a lot of work on the topic of the right to disconnect and telework. I think within the next 12 months, really a series of publications will be made. I'm now not familiar in how far they will also cover the topic that is so dear to your hearts. But in our contexts, we will try to make sure that these will be properly reflected. I saw Ms. Lexman is back. I don't know if she wants to come in on this one.
Mrs. Lexman, would you like to take the floor on this question, or should we move to the next one?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Because the problem is that my mic is blocked by you, and I couldn't speak even before because I cannot unblock the microphone. So you have to unblock the microphone for me if you want me to speak. So yes, I just would I would only stress what I already said during my intervention, is that I believe that what is the most important is to the right to disconnect, is that it's really tailored to the concrete situation. So that's why I believe that the best approach is through the social partners to finding the best solution, because we have different ways of the need and different ways of people working online, and I think it has to be tailored to the different situations. And for that reason, I believe that it's the best approach is that the social partners will find proposals for the concrete situations, and this will be then enshrined into the legislation or on the European level, all national levels, because I still believe that part of this falls to the subsidiarity principle, and I believe that the solution should be as close as produced as close as to the people. So I believe that the national solutions are maybe more appropriate here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Lexman, for this answer. I would like to say that we have two other questions which we would very much like to table. So if you could all be with us for another 5 or 7 minutes, that would be great. We have one question from Luciano La Rivera on the political support of a day of synchronized free time. Luciano, if we could have your question, please.
Thank you very much. I'm an Italian Jesuit. I'm here in Brussels by a few days, and thank you for what have you said. The European Social Charter fixes in Article 2.5, I quote, to ensure a weekly rest period which shall, as far as possible, coincide with the day recognized by tradition or custom in the country or region concerned as a day of rest. The Charter is a treaty which all EU member states have signed and ratified. Should it not be a very controversial matter to have a very broad political backing to translate this matter also in a directive of the EU?
Thank you very much for this question, Luciano. I think maybe Alex Agiusa-Liba, if you would like to take the floor. I think this fits for you, this question.
Yes, as I said, I totally agree with having a day which is a rest day, in accordance to the as the previous speaker has said, in accordance with the tradition of each and every member state. I think this makes sense if we really want to treat our workers, treat our families, not simply as robots, not simply as productive machines, but as human beings. And I don't see any negative repercussions, both economically and socially, for having such a right enforced at EU level. As I said, and I firmly hold this point as a pivotal point in my work, especially in the Ample Committee. When workers are not treated as human beings with dignity, and when they are treating simply as machines to try to increase their productivity and use this productivity argumentation all the time, I think this would have negative repercussions on their physical and mental health, which would definitely lead directly to negative productivity, less productivity, and also negative economic repercussions. So, in my opinion, having joint synchronized free time and a day which is established every week as a day of rest, I don't think that it can leave negative repercussions both on our economic and also social life. Still, it is already very tricky to discuss the right to disconnect. It would be more complicated, and I believe it would make a very big disservice to the whole discussion if we try to confuse in one single legislative instrument the right to disconnect and synchronized free time. So both are important. Both, in my humble opinion, should be tackled by legislation at EU level, but legislatively they should and must be treated separately. But yes, I totally agree, and I think that it's high time to have a day of rest for families, for workers to enjoy with their loved ones, with their family. It's of utmost importance.
Thank you very much for this contribution, Alex. We have one question from Damian Putting. I would like to give him the floor. Could we unmute him? I cannot hear you, Damian. Maybe we can, maybe you can type the question in the chat or by email, and we will take it afterwards, and we will proceed with one other question for now. Okay, perfect. Because we have one further question from Renato Curzi from Don Bosco International on some of the legal aspects related to the introduction of a common day of synchronized free time. Renato, if you could have your question, please.
Yes, thank you very much, Hendrik. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Wonderful. Many thanks to all the speakers today. And just let me introduce the context of my question. So Sunday, as you may know, as a common day of rest was already enshrined in Article 5 of the EU Working Time Directive of 1993, the predecessor of the current Working Time Directive of 2003, with Article 118 of the EC Treaty, today Article 153 of the TFEU, as a legal basis, which gives the EU the competence to adopt measures aimed at contributing to the protection of the health and safety of workers. This was annulled by the Court of Justice in 1996, not because the legal basis was unlawful, but merely because, I quote, the legislator had failed to explain why Sunday, as a weekly rest day, is more closely connected with the health and safety of workers than any other day of the week. So does this not mean that the European Union could, from a legal perspective, safely adopt a directive which prescribes a day of synchronized free time, but leaves it at the discretion of the member states to choose which date should be? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Renato. Maybe I would give this question, I would hand this question over to Max Übe. Do you see any legal issues, or wouldn't the EU have a safe legal right or legal instrument, a legal base to come up with a day of synchronized free time, also as it is phrased, for instance, in the European Social Charter at the moment? We need to unmute him, I think, Thomas. Okay.
Yes, no. I'm not sure I understood the question 100% correct. So the question is a day, a synchronized day, but let's say not necessarily the Sunday.
Exactly. So the question was that there was already the old working time directive in the 1990s, which included a day of synchronized rest, but it was fixed as a Sunday. And in the end, the Court of Justice annulled this clause because the council couldn't justify why the day off had to be a Sunday and not, for instance, a Saturday. But it didn't really, but the court was very fine with the legal basis. I think it was a legal basis from the health and safety field, which would justify a day of synchronized free time. And there the question was if then the EU wouldn't have a legal or a safe legal option to propose a day of synchronized free time if it is phrased in a more open way, like, for instance, at the moment in the European Social Charter, which makes reference to a day of custom or tradition.
Well, I mean, this would need to be checked with our legal services and the legal experts in DG Employment. But from what you read out here, I would think that that should be possible. Where I would have more doubts, also according to what you've read out, is to fix the day to, let's say, let's do it on the Sunday, because here indeed traditions, customs come in. You could very well argue, and I'm sure many people would argue with subsidiarity. Why do you need to do that at European level? But the 1 day per week, I mean, it's anyway foreseen by the Working Time Directive. So the question synchronized, we would need to look a bit deeper into that. But it would not, to be clear, no, I think it would not necessarily help the Sunday Alliance, because I don't think the legal basis would allow for determining one specific day of the week to be the synchronized free day.
Okay, yes, thank you very much for these insights. Maybe before we close, I would give one other go for Damian, if you would like to try again to take the floor. Can we unmute him? Thomas, I think he's there under name Katrin Hatzinger.
Hi, do you hear me? Okay, I'm Damian Pattling from the Protestant Church in Germany, and we are also a member of the Sunday Alliance. And I have one more short question to Max Übe, perhaps, because I heard that some suggest here in Brussels that the European Commission should implement the right to disconnect into the strategic framework on health and safety at work. And so I would like to know if it's already clear that it should become a directive, or if there is a certain danger to implement it into a strategic plan and that it's not a real legal act that would be enforceable as well. Thank you.
Well, the new OSH strategic framework that will be adopted, if I'm not mistaken, on the 23rd of June already, this is not a legislative act or proposal, definitely not. And as far as I know, but as you can imagine, it's still under discussion. There will be also a reference to the issue of the right to disconnect, but not, let's say, not go much further than what you find already now in the Social Pillar Action Plan, that also refers, of course, to the again important European Parliament report on the topic. A legislative proposal would need, I mean, people that know our area know that requires a two-stage social partner consultation according to the treaty, that takes quite a long time, that needs to be properly prepared. It requires an impact assessment and so on. So this is a much longer time frame, and definitely not for the OSH framework that will be presented already in, I think, in 3 weeks time, 21st of June. Yeah.
Thank you very much. This was very clear answer, very much to the point. Thank you. With this, we are already 12 minutes over time, and this would bring our webinar to the close. I think we've had a very good first exchange, which we were very glad about. I think we've heard that there is strong support for the social and also the economic argument in favor of synchronized free time. I think we all agree that there's a big added value, but that there's also still maybe the need to gather more scientific data on it. So here, if we come back to the role of the Commission and also then in particular EU OSHA, Eurofound and the think tank community to make this a topic, this I think would be very much appreciated, to turn these plausible considerations also into hard scientific facts. I think where I heard some disagreement in the discussion is about the policy tool, if it should be pursued, if the day of synchronized free time should be pursued via social partner agreements or via EU directive. I think here there were still some there's still some discussions which need to be continued, and also from what I deduct from the discussions, we still need to discuss if this right to disconnect and a possible directive, if this is the proper tool to address the day of synchronized free time, or if there may be another EU directive, I don't know, the working time directive or other policy tool where this should be better addressed. So we will stay in contact with all of the speakers, also of course with you, Max Übe. We will be glad to accompany this further during the next weeks and months. And with this, I would like to thank you all for your attendance today and for your interest. We are very glad to have such a high number of participants. I think this also reflects the importance that many persons and communities attached to the matter. And with this, I would like to close the webinar. Just to mention before we close, if you would like to get in contact or in touch with us for any queries or questions, you are very welcome to get in touch with any of the organizations that are member of the steering group of the European Sunday Alliance. These you find on the program of the event from today, or you can also always drop an email to contact@europeansundayalliance.eu. Thank you very much and bye-bye.